all these ancient texts, they have three different aspects. So there is magical narratives that is just helping to preserve the data. It's something like some preservatives added into the Itihasa-Puranas, like you store the food like in pickles, you put oil or you put vinegar. So something like that, the magical narratives allow us to preserve the ancient data so that large number of people will remember it, recite it to the next generation. Like that, it will continue and reach our generation. And then a lot of so many rivers, around 400 plus rivers in the Mahabharata. So many number of lakes, pilgrimage sites, tirthasthanas, more than 500 tirthasthanas, mountain peaks, cities, towns, villages. All these are mentioned in the Mahabharata. Around Ramayana also have not so extensive like Mahabharata, but around 30-35 kingdoms in Ramayana. And so many around 30-40 kings contemporary to Sri Rama is mentioned in the Ramayana. And so many rivers around again around 30 rivers in Ramayana. Similarly, in the Rig Veda, there are 33 rivers I have mentioned in my first book, and few place names like Ulaspada and Manusha, which are very ancient, located in current Kaital, near Kaital in Haryana. Even mentioned in the early Rigvedic period. So there are certain places mentioned in Rig Veda as well, around 33 plus rivers, including Saraswati, Dashatvati, Vipasha, this Vash, Sudutri, Asikni, Parishni, Marudvrita, Vitasta, Arjigiya, Sushoma, and so many others, Kupha, Mahatnu, Promu, Gomati, Sarayu, Anitapag, then Drishtama. So many rivers, all mentioned. Drishtama, Shushartu. So many rivers are mentioned in the Rig Veda. So all these are factual information. Might have seen so many researchers who are putting very exaggerated chronologies, and then they have huge fan flow following in Twitter and in social media, etc. But the fact is that, like, for example, some people say the Rig Veda, the Vedic civilization is 85,000 BC. They connect it with Toba eruptions, etc. Some people follow with the Chatur Yuga system, which is 4.32 million years. Chatur Yuga, which emerged only recently in the somewhat little earlier than the period of Aryabhatta in the between Sunga and Gupta period. These are all like only 2000 years ideas. But they back project these ideas into the ancient world of Vedas and Itihasas in the period of Rama and Pandavas. And they think that Rama is 8.64 lakhs years ago. So that means they are going against the complete scientific reality. For example, humanity, humans, civilized human beings, Homo sapiens emerged in around 1 lakh to 2 lakh years ago. In the Ramayana, it is very clear there is a mention about iron weapons, narachas, then copper and bronze and iron weapons. They are using it in bronze is used for making chariots. The chariots are reinforced by bronze. We already have a Sinali chariot excavated from 1800 BC. So overall, the Iron Age in India started around 2000 BC, and Ramayana, all the events in Ramayana which actually depend upon iron, automatically, so it comes into later than 2000 BC. Yeah, so namaste all the audience. So I have been like talking about this interesting topic for almost 3 years now, and in Indus University, this is my second or third talk. I was talking about various subjects like the Mahabharata Janapadas, as well as about dharma and science in my previous talks in Indus University. So this talk is primarily about the geochronology. So there are two aspects to which that is geography and chronology. But since these two entities, the geography and chronology, are inseparable, something like the space-time, when we say space-time, the space and time are inseparable and they are like the same. So there are similar kind of concept is the geochronology, where the geography and chronology are discussed inseparably. So to this particular topic, I have published 3 books, in fact 4 books, because the third book become 2 volumes. So first book is Rivers of Rig Veda, which is focusing on the geography and chronology of Rig Veda, and the second one is on the geography of Ramayana, which is focusing on the geography, chronology, everything of Ramayana era, and then geography of Mahabharata, where it is talking about primarily about geography of Mahabharata, but also the chronological aspects. So these 3 books focus on the 3 different periods. One is the Rigvedic period, and another one is the Itihasic period, separated into Rama era and the Pandava era. So that is what like today's subject is about. So I'm just moving some slides so that the talk becomes well and heard. Yeah, so what you can see below is the 3 books, the front cover of the 3 books. So Rivers of Rigveda is the first book, which is launched in 2022 January, and Geography of Ramayana in 2023 January, and Geography of Mahabharata, both volumes published in 2024 January, that is 4 months, three months ago, like that. So the entire geochronology that we are discussing is based on these books, and any kind of details which you can actually refer to the books. It is available in Amazon all over India, as well as anywhere in the world, Amazon UK and Amazon.com all over the world, and also in Flipkart, and both in the ebook and the print book. So Amazon Kindle also you can get this 4 books. So currently this talk is only about the summarization, so may not be going into deeper details, but the entire argumentation, logical flow, everything is mentioned in my 3 books. So having said that, let us move to the problem. So before going into the problem statement, I have to bring the audience into the attention of how you approach the ancient text, because this becomes a big problem when we discuss about geochronology, because some people confuse factual data with magical narratives inside the Mahabharata and Ramayana. In the Rig Veda, they are not much. There are no kind of exaggerated narratives in Rig Veda or any of the Vedas. They are very much factual and descriptive. Whereas in the Itihasas, there is a concept of Atishayokti, or what in Sanskrit it is called Atishayokti, and it is called we can actually translate it as a magical narratives in the in our like if you make an English translation, or it can be also called Adbhuta Rasa, which is another Sanskrit term, Adbhuta Rasa. So there is a reason for including the magical narratives in the Itihasas, because if you look at the Rig Veda, it is transmitted orally for many thousand years. So like at least from 3300 BC to 1900 BC, the Rig Veda was in composition period. And after 1900 BC till today, in 21st century, we most of the time, until it is written down in the very late Gupta era period, it was transmitted in oral transmissions. But Rig Veda have very strict rules of transmission, like there is a pada pada, and also every phonetics, every single phoneme inside Rig Veda is well defined, so that there is no scope of any variation in the Rig Vedic transmission. So even the Aryan invasion theory kind of researchers, even though they are opposed to our narrative, even they were surprised to see the Rig Veda, both described in northern side in Kashmir and southern side in Kerala. Their pronunciation is absolutely the same, even after thousands of kilometers away, above that they are same. So there is no difference in the Rig Vedic transmission or any of the transmission of the Vedic Veda Samhitas in any parts of India. So that is because of the very strict rules of Nirukta, and the Chandas and the Vyakarana, everything that has been the Vedangas, the five Angas of the six Angas of the Vedas, because they ensure that the entire information is properly preserved. So the Rig Veda doesn't require any magical narratives, anything to preserve the data inside that. In case of but Itihasas and Puranas, uh, what happens is that there is absolutely no kind of strict pronunciation based definitions in oral transmission. There are no kind of like Nirukta or Chandas or any kind of such expert methodologies to preserve the information inside the Itihasa Puranas. So what the ancient rishis, Vedavyasa and Valmiki and their disciples who have transmitted it after their period, they included some magical narratives. So they presented the information in a magical way. For example, saying that Hanuman has lifted a mountain, 4,000 ton mountain from Himalayas and traveled in the sky along the, to Lanka, or Sri Krishna has lifted the Govardhana. So these are all factual information. For example, Govardhana, what Krishna did is he elevated the Mahatva, or they elevated the importance of Govardhana in producing rains. And then have a question that whether it is Indra who is helping us getting rains, or it is Govardhana who is helping us getting rains. So basically, the Uttara or the elevation of the Mahatva of Govardhana is poetically described as Krishna lifting the Govardhana. So there is truth inside, but to excite the readers, to excite the listeners, the narrative is mentioned that Krishna lifted the Govardhana with a little finger. So this is how the magical narratives are spread. So because of that, people are a little more interested in understanding. Little more means even more interested, thousandfold more interested in going through the Itihasa Puranas. They will remember it. They will recite it to their children. So the transmission was possible in multiple generations, in multiple centuries. The Itihasas and Puranas were transmitted, even though there was no strict rule following, just like in the Vedas or Veda, there was no strict rules. Only the magical narratives is good enough so that the people get interested and they continued the narrative for generation to generation. So that is the purpose of the magical narratives in our Itihasa Puranas. But when we analyze the Itihasa Puranas using chronological analysis, like what we are doing, we have to see that certain information inside the Itihasa Puranas are magical narrative and they are not factual data. That is why this particular diagram comes. So all these ancient texts, they have three different aspects. So there is magical narratives that is just helping to preserve the data. It's something like some preservatives added into the Itihasa Puranas, like you store the food like in pickles, you put oil or you put vinegar. So something like that, the magical narratives allow us to preserve the ancient data so that large number of people will remember it, recite it to the next generation. Like that, it will continue and reach our generation. So in our generation, because we are living in information age, we doesn't require magical narrative to preserve it, but you can enjoy them as a poetical, like some poetical examples or some beautiful poetry. So that is about magical narrative. But then there are also factual data. For example, in the image you have seen in the top, the bottom right, that is a Bharatavarsha map I have created in 2005. Of course, it is available all over the internet. It is there in thousands of places in Wikipedia and different thousands of websites. These images used. So this is created by extracting the factual data inside the Mahabharata. All the different kingdoms in Mahabharata is extracted, located and positioned in the map of India. So that is what this particular map. So there is factual data inside the Puranas, inside the Ramayana, inside Mahabharata, inside the Vedas, everywhere the factual data also is present. But it is not very obvious, but you have to look deeper and study deeply, then only you will get the factual data. So for example, in Rig Veda, there is factual data about the kings ruled in the period And there are so many sages, around 200 or 225 plus rishis lived in this period, and they composed different suktas in the Rig Veda. So similarly, in the Mahabharata and Ramayana, there is a factual information. The lineage of Ikshvaku starting from Manu is there in the Ramayana, and the lineage of Ila and Ila, Pururava, Sayus, Nahusha, and Yayadi, and Yayadi's five sons, Puru, Anu, Drupyu, Yadu, Turvasu, and Puru's descendants, which is like Bharata, and then Bharata's descendants like Pumanu, Suhotra, Ajamila, and finally Samvarana, and then Kuru, and Kuru's descendant Pradeepa Shantanu, and then Shantanu's descendants like Vichitravirya, Chitrangada, Bhishma, and then Vichitravirya's son through Vyasa, Dhritarashtra, Pandu, and then their sons Kauravas and Pandavas. And Pandava's son Arjuna's son Abhimanyu's son Parikshit's son Janamejay's son Shatanika's son Ashwamedha Datta. So many information is in the Mahabharata, so many information in the Ramayana about the lineage of kings and sages, and so many kingdoms mentioned in the Ramayana. Similarly, so many number of around 500 kingdoms mentioned in the Mahabharata. So this map is mostly about major kingdoms of that. Out of 500, around 50 kingdoms, major ones I have located in this particular map. And in my books, there is information about the 500 kingdoms as well. And then a lot of so many rivers, around 400 plus rivers in the Mahabharata. So many number of lakes, pilgrimage sites, tirthasthanas, more than 500 tirthasthanas, mountain peaks, cities, towns, villages. All these are mentioned in the Mahabharata. Around Ramayana also have not so extensive like Mahabharata, but around 30-35 kingdoms in Ramayana. And so many around 30-40 kings contemporary to Sri Rama is mentioned in the Ramayana. And so many rivers around again around 30 rivers in Ramayana. Similarly, in the Rig Veda, there are 33 rivers I have mentioned in my first book, and few place names like Ilaspada and Manusha, which are very ancient, located in current Kaital, near Kaital in Haryana. Even mentioned in the early Rig Vedic period. So there are certain places mentioned in Rig Veda as well, around 33 plus rivers, including Saraswati, Dashatvati, Vipasha, Vipash, Sudutri, Asikni, Parishni, Marudurita, Vitasta, Arjigiya, Sushoma, and so many others, Kupha, Mahatnu, Promu, Pomati, Sarayu, Anitapag, then Trishtama. So many rivers, all mentioned, Trishtama, Shushartu. So many rivers are mentioned in the Rig Veda. So all these are factual information. And the last part is the philosophical part. Of course, the main purpose of these books were neither magical narratives nor factual data, but the philosophy based on which the Indian spirituality is based. So the Rig Veda is starting in the Rig Veda. It's completely the primary purpose is the philosophy and the spirituality. So you have the concepts like Rita emerging in the Rig Vedic period. The entire Rig Veda primarily focus on the concept of Rita, or the natural order. So the natural order is like the certain patterns in the universe, like sun rises in the east and then sets in the west, and it repeats their daily 6 seasons. The ritus, that is 6 seasons, repeats periodically, and there is no every time it is the Sharat comes, Sharat, Vasanta, Varsha, Grishma, all these 6 seasons repeat periodically without any change. So that gives actually certain assurance to the ancient people that there is certain order, certain like patterns which can be relied upon. So that is where the concept of Rita came. So it is like a universal order, like all the different entities in the universe follow certain principles, certain patterns, and they don't fail. So the rain comes in the proper time, the winter comes in the proper time. So that kind of assurance is Rita. So that is the truth. It is also called the truth, or it is also the basis of modern science, if you look at, because modern science also started looking at the patterns in the nature and discovered certain laws. So this is our the Rita is some universal law, which is like certain patterns and periodicity that you can observe in nature and in the universe. So it is also observed in the seasons, that is happening in Earth, and also the motion of the planets. So every planet like Saturn, Jupiter, or Mercury, Venus, or Mars, which are visible planets, they follow certain pattern and they repeat again and again. So there is some assurance, everything. So that is Rita. And later on in the Itihasic period, the concept of dharma emerged from Rita, because the dharma is a similar kind of order or pattern or reliability in terms of in the human society. That is dharma. So dharma is derived from Rita, and even modern science is derived from Rita. So then again you have concepts like the Aptavakyas, Ayam Atman Brahma, the Vedantic Aptavakyas, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma. So all these are philosophical. These are the core aspects of Vedas, Itihasas, and Puranas, Upanishads, Aranyakas, all these Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, different categories of ancient text, even Veda Samhitas and Itihasas and Puranas. So this is all just giving a kind of understanding, so that when we start focusing on the chronology, people should not be confused that we are actually not having and giving any importance to philosophy or to the magical narratives, etc. They have their own places. So having said that, now I will come to the problem statement of the, because might have seen so many researchers who are putting very exaggerated chronologies, and then they have huge fan flow following in Twitter and in social media, etc. But the fact is that, like, for example, some people say the Rig Veda, the Vedic civilization is 85,000 BC. They connect it with Toba eruptions, etc. Some people follow with the Chatur Yuga system, which is 4.32 million years. Chatur Yuga, which emerged only recently in the somewhat little earlier than the period of Aryabhatta in the between Sunga and Gupta period. These are all like only 2000 years ideas. But they back project these ideas into the ancient world of Vedas and Itihasas in the period of Rama and Pandavas. And they think that Rama is 8.64 lakhs years ago. So that means they are going against the complete scientific reality. For example, humans, civilized, these human beings, Homo sapiens emerged in around 1 lakh to 2 lakh years ago. That is how short the human being or Homo sapiens emerged. The primate, that is our group of family of our group of these primate group, where Homo sapiens is a part. It's only few millions years ago. So when you put Rama in 8.64 lakhs years ago, we are actually abusing Rama and saying that he is some Neanderthal or some Cro-Magnon man or some Homo erectus. But our god Rama is not some Homo erectus or some Neanderthal. So he has Rama in the Ramayana. It is very clear there is a mention about iron weapons, narachas, then copper and bronze and iron weapons. They are using it in bronze is used for making chariots. The chariots are reinforced by bronze. We already have a Sinali chariot excavated from 1800 BC. So overall, the Iron Age in India started around 2000 BC, and Ramayana, all the events in Ramayana which actually depend upon iron, automatically, so it comes into later than 2000 BC. But the chronology exaggeration, they don't consider any of these other disciplines or other kind of aspects related to chronology. They don't look at the archaeology. They just simply dismiss archaeology as a very incomplete science. But actually, this particular exaggeration of the chronology is most immature and incomplete compared to the archaeology, where thousands of archaeologists working every day, excavating thousands of sites all over the India and even all over the world, and the data coming from thousands of sites. That is how the period of Bronze Age and the period of Iron Age, everything is defined based on thousands of sites. So thousands of data correlations and thousands of data they completely analyze and then create the ranges of period for Bronze Age and Iron Age. The first time occurrence of bronze, the emergence of bronze mining, the bronze ore extraction, iron ore extraction, all these things by looking at the archaeology, but is the oldest record. Based on that, these periods are defined: Bronze Age, Iron Age, etc. So you cannot dismiss it and put your very fantasy theories about exaggerated chronologies. So that's what I bring in this particular slide. You can this straight away. I'm showing you the how many number of generations are between Manu and Parikshit. So of course, this is a kind of data you get from the Mahabharata, the first the Adi Parva 19th Adhyaya. There is a Aila Guru Bharata Kuru lineage. That is a lineage starting from Manu's daughter Ila, then leading through Kuru and then through Bharata and Kuru, and that is the lineage in which Pandavas are born. So you can see the number one onwards. Number one is typically Brahmadeva, but in this particular data, Brahmadeva is missed. So I have put gap there. So then the Brahmadeva, Daksha, Aditi, Vivasvat, Manu, Ila, Purudevas, Ayush, Nakusha, Yayadi, Puru, like that it goes. And you can see Manu comes in as a fifth number from Brahma, and then the Parikshit comes around 48 from Brahma actually. So if you look at only 44 generation between Manu and Parikshit. And anybody, it's I don't have to do, you are university students, but even a nursery school child will know that average generation gap, like when a father get a daughter or son, that is typically when the father becomes around 25 years of age, you get a son. Okay, it can be 20 or it can be 36. And so, but of course, this particular 15, 25, 40, I have mentioned before because we study the existing lineages of historical lineage of Pradyodas, Brihadradas, Pradyodas, and other lineages which are already available with us. Data is available. The total generation gap between kings. Sometimes it is 15, sometimes it is 25. Maximum generation gap we have seen is 40. That is for the Brihadrada dynasty. The kings 40 average generation gap is 40 because there are a lot of missing kings in between. That is the reason why it has become 40. So this is your real data. See, the real data is only 44 generation between Manu and Parikshit, and average generation gap you pick, you can choose because you choose the maximum, for example. Even though that is not the ideal, but you choose the maximum for the argument's sake. You choose the maximum generation gap of 40, and then 44 generation multiplied by 40 generation gap. It is only 1760 years between Manu and Parikshit. That is the kind of very healthy data about when Manu lived. So, of course, I put a Kurukshetra war at 1793 BC because of obvious reasons. Because Kurukshetra war is also, you can see a lot of Iron Age weapons used, iron mace, so many things made of iron. Iron arrows are used. So, iron is the latest technology in Kurukshetra war. Of course, bronze also used extensively, and bronze age started in 3300 BC. So, people may argue that, okay, it is a Bronze Age culture, but of course, the iron is inseparable from the narrative. A lot of places iron is mentioned. For example, when Dhritarashtra is after the war, then Dhritarashtra is seeing the Pandavas. Then he was very angry with Bhima, so he wanted to crush Bhima. But then Krishna noted the signs, so Krishna pushed the iron statue of Bhima, which Duryodhana was using for practice, mace practice. So Krishna pushed this iron statue, and Dhritarashtra started embracing that iron statue to crush it. So the iron is very, very important in the Mahabharata. And of course, so many number of places it mentioned iron arrows, and so many number of places iron-based the utensils and the weapons. The iron, so many things are mentioned. Iron in the Kurukshetra war itself, so many things are mentioned. So 2000 BC is the upper limit for Kurukshetra war as well. Similarly, for Ramayana also 2000 BC is upper limit. And so we have Kurukshetra war, one of the astronomers, similar to Nilesh Hawk and Vedavir, there is an astronomer who is Ashok Bhatnagar. He's a professional astronomer, not coming from another discipline and working in astronomy, because he's directly astronomer actually. Professionally astronomer is and he has used this planetarium software, and same methodology used by Nilesh or Vedavir. He got the date 1793 BC, and this 1793 BC happened to be in the range of Kurukshetra war defined by Dr. Sanjay Manjul, who excavated the Sinoli chariot. So Sanjay Manjul's estimation for Kurukshetra war based on archaeology is 1800 BC to 1700 BC. So you have a consensus between archaeology and astronomy already there in Kurukshetra war, that is 1793 BC, because both astronomy and archaeology agrees for a date of 1793 BC. So it is a very solid date. So that is the date I have used in my books, 3 books, Rivers of Rigveda, Geography of Ramayana, and Geography of Mahabharata. And if you start using 1793 BC as your date of Kurukshetra war, you add 1760 years that you get because of the 44th generation between Parikshit and Manu. And using the maximum generation gap of 40, you get 1760 years, you add up. So Manu, you can see around 3,300 and 3,553 BC is the date you get for Manu. But even I am actually giving something like, okay, you can put some allowances, like maybe there are two numerous missing kings, especially in the older period, maybe somewhere between Manu, maybe somewhere between this Bharata and Kuru. There are more kings than what is listed, because they are very ancient, so people may not be listing down all the ancient kings. Put some generation gaps in between. All that you do, so maximum you can say Manu is living in 4000 BC or 6000 BC, or whatever. Put it like it can be like 8000 BC to correlate it with the Pirana, which is the oldest settlement in Saraswati River. Pirana is the oldest settlement in Saraswati River, and it is dated to 17990 BC. So if you want to correlate Manu with Birana, so be it. I am okay with it. But that is the limit. Beyond that, so 8000 BC is the kind of reasonable limit for Manu. Beyond that, you put Manu in like 12,000 BC or 16,000 BC, beyond the Ice Age, 84,000. It's all it's all just joke actually. It's a joke on ourselves. Maybe you get some kind of personal satisfaction by putting Manu somewhere in far away in the 85,000 BC, etc. But nobody, even a nursery kid, will question you. Nursery school kid will question you why you are, because this is only 44 generations. And if you straight away put the data, you get 3,553 BC for Manu. But still you are exaggerating, okay, exaggerate up to 8,000 BC. Without any kind of even a single bit of data. If you feel like correlating it with Virana, you do it. But then just don't say that it's much more older. It is total nonsense actually. So that is what one point I want to put here, because this is the real data. The real data tell you to locate Manu in 3,553 BC. Now, if you ask then what, so if Manu is in 3,553 BC, what are those archaeological sites which are older than 3,553 BC? They could be some older civilization, right? We don't say that civilization is stopping at Manu, right? Because our memory is limited up to Manu, that we can say, but civilization may not be stopping at Manu actually. Or we may be giving the same name Manu for anybody who is living older than 3,300 BC. That is also possible. I have mentioned that in my book, Rivers of Rig Veda, introducing the concept of Manu people. That means that a large amount of generations of people who migrated from Gujarat, Kutch area, where we have recently we got a very ancient 3,500 BC, 3,700 BC archaeological site we have recently discovered in the Kutch area. So this is the area from where the large number of people migrated along Saraswati and then settled in Kurukshetra in the Pirana region in 7,000 BC. So of course, the large number of people may be there. All of them will be like just designated as Manu. And that is the concept of Manu people. So it's large number of generation just by like persifying as a single individual. So that's single individual represent the large number of people who have escaped a flood from this Kutch area and traveled through Saraswati, taking so many number of generation and reached settled in Kurukshetra. So this is I mentioned in my book, Rivers of Rig Veda. So there is a concept of Manu people, which means multiple generations all defined as Manu. So that is possible. But a single person Manu, who is the father of Ila, that single individual has to be located somewhere in the 3,553 BC with some exaggeration, that is reasonable exaggeration, which don't break your analysis. You can put in 4,000 BC, 6,000 BC, or maximum stretch 8,000 BC. That's what I am saying. And then I coming to the another part of the thing. Actually. Now, what you are seeing here is, see here actually I talked about up to Parikshit. Of course, this particular table goes up to Shatanika, that is Parikshit's son Janamejaya, son Shatanika, Shataniga's son Ashwamedha Datta. So Mahabharata is describing recording kings up to Ashwamedha Datta. That is the grandson of Janamejaya, or the great grandson of Parikshit. But you can this particular lineage continues. So you can see in the top there is Parikshit, then there is Janamejaya, and then Shatanika. All these people are you can see here, right in the right hand side, you have, let me check the, yeah. So you have Parikshit here, then Janameja, Shatanika. This list is found in the Puranas, like Vishnu Purana, Matsya Purana, Vayu Purana. All these Puranas, you see the people who are much later than the Parikshit are mentioned. So Mahabharata stops at Ashwamedha Datta, but the Puranas continues like Parikshit, Janameja, Shatanika, Ashwamedha Datta. This Ashwamedha Ja, there is a variation in the name. Asima Krishna, Nichakra, like that it goes. And whatever this number I indicated is the fifth in descent from Parikshit. Right? So Janameja is first, Shatanika is second, Ashwamedha is third, Asima Krishna is fourth, Nichakra is five. So fifth generation descent of Parikshit. So like similarly, during the period of Nichakra or Nrichakshu, that is 5th or 12th, the Hastinapura got completely flooded, and the Kurus moved from Hastinapura to Kaushambi. That is near to the Prayagraj, Kosam, the Kaushambi, that is in Uttar Pradesh. Anybody in UP will be knowing about it. So Kaushambi, so they have shifted to Kaushambi. So you have one event, big event after Kurukshetra War is shifting of from Hastinapura to Kaushambi. That happened during the reign of Nichakra or Nichakshu. And then it goes like this, goes down. Then you have 22nd Shatanika. Shatanika is contemporary to Buddha. Shatanika and his son Udayana. They were contemporary to Sri Buddha. And of course, as per Jain tradition, they are contemporary to Vardhamana Mahavira also. So Shatanika Udayana period is the period of Gautama Buddha and Vardhamana Mahavira. And you can see Udayana marrying Pradyodha daughter Vasavadatta. This is part of another beautiful story, the Swapna Vasavadatta, which is similar to like Mahabharata is talking about Pandavas. Of course, then Pandava is in Udayana story is discussed in Swapna Vasavadatta. So the 23rd descent of Parikshit. So he is described in Swapna Vasavadatta. And then goes it further down, Narimitra, then Shemaka. The 27th descent from Parikshit, Shemaka, and all the Puranas are very sadly mentioned that the Shemaka is the end of the Kuru dynasty, because then the Mahapadmananda rose to power in Magadha, and Mahapadmananda was almost like Yudhishthira, just like, but of course not very dharmic like Yudhishthira. He conquered all the territories, including all the territories to the west of Magadha. I mean, of course, Videha in Bihar, the Vaishali Rashtra in the Bihar, then Kosala, that is Ayodhya, Rama's Kosala, Ayodhya, Kashi, Panchala, Kuru, everything he has conquered, and all the kings were defeated. So he either killed Shemaka, or Shemaka was dethroned from his royal, from the throne. He was no longer a king. So either killed or he was banished from being a king. So that is the kind of lineage. So of course, there are two major events I mentioned: shifting of Hastinapura from to capital from Hastinapura to Kaushambi happened somewhere here, and then Sri Buddha and Mahavira they were living somewhere here in the 23rd and 22nd, 23rd generation, and 27th generation ended by Mahapadmananda. So there is 27 generations. There is only 27 generation between Parikshit and Shemaka. That is another data that is given to you. So you cannot either push the Kurukshetra war to some other location other than 1793 BC. You don't have that freedom, because it is already tied up with the period of Mahapadmananda, who is current estimate is around, he ruled around 350 BC. Of course, there are several chronology revisions proposed by Kota Venkatachala and Sri Vedavirarya, but those chronology revisions where they try to put this Mahapadmananda instead of 350 BC, they try to put into 1500 BC, etc., is not successful, because there are so much of interconnections between different lineages, which is not only confined within India, because by the time of Mahapadmananda, and then soon after that Mahapadmananda, there is a lot of interconnection between Greek dynasties, Iranian dynasties, Achaemenid dynasty. They started conquering different parts of northwest India. There was invasion. There was a kind of migration from the Central Asia into India. All these things happened in this period. The Kanishkas, all these people are there. The Kanishka is a little bit later than Mahapadmananda, but so many kind of connections that has occurred between different countries. And because of that, when you change the date of Mahapadmananda or Sri Buddha or Chandragupta Maurya, then you are not only changing the chronology of India, but also attempting to change the chronology of so many other countries, Central Asia and then Iran, all the way up to Greece. So it's not very successful. Of course, there is a lot of attempt going on. We cannot say with the final word. We cannot say the final word till now, but it is not very kind of a straightforward kind of activity of pushing the date. So as of now, we have to just confine the 350 BC as the date for Mahapadmananda, and then your 1793 BC date of Kurukshetra War is the date wherein you fall. Like, for example, apart from the generation gap, because at least in case of the generation in the below, that is later to Parikshit, you have direct statements in the Puranas apart from the generations that you can see. So there are direct statement which says there are 1015 years elapsed between the coronation of Mahapadmananda and the birth of Parikshit. So between Parikshit birth to coronation of Mahapadmananda, Vishnu Purana says there are 1015 years. That is more or less matching with the generation gap that we have put, like 1080 years we get in the generation gap by direct multiplication, and 1015 we direct statement in the Vishnu Purana. But other Puranas say differ with Vishnu Purana and says no, there are 1050 years between Parikshit and Mahapadmananda. Others say 1150 years. Bhagavata Purana says 1150 years. Different versions of Vayu Purana says 1500 years elapsed. So on an average, because in this situation we have to take an average, because Puranas are more or less always like this. They don't agree in everything. They don't agree in any aspect because there will be some variability. Even if you look at the list of Sapta Rishis, the different Puranas will list different names of Rishis as Sapta Rishis. And if you look at the Dashavataras, different Puranas will list different avatars. Some people will include Buddha, some people will include Balarama, some Puranas will include Mohini and others. So some variations is natural in the Puranas. So 1015 years to 1015 years, of course, we accept the variability. So we have if you look at 350 BC as the date of Mahapadmananda, you add 1015 to that or 1500 to that. So you get a range of date from 1300 BC to 1800 BC as the healthy date for Kurukshetra War. And the 1793 BC date is falling within that healthy date range of date. So that is another kind of thing I want to showcase. So these two particular slides, this slide and this slide tells you about the true chronology of our Veda-Itihasa-Puranas, because it covers the Rigvedic. This, for example, from Bharata onwards, there is a mention. The Bharata and the descendants of Bharata are mentioned as a contemporary kings in the early Rigvedic period. And so anybody, including Bharata, is late Rigvedic personalities, like this Daksha, Aditi, Vivasvat, Manu, all the people up to this Bharata, the late Rigvedic. Of course, there are certain kings like Dushyanta who are later, but projected as ancient. But that's a different story, which I mentioned in the Mahabharata. But otherwise, the personalities like Daksha, Aditi, Vivasvat, Manu, Ila, Puruvas, Ayush, Nakusha, Yayadi, Puru, all these people are mentioned in the Rigveda. And Bharata is also mentioned slightly early Rigvedic. And then slightly pre-Rigvedic, just maybe the 3300 BC, 3500 BC kind of period. And then you have Humanyu, Suhotra, all these people mentioned in the early Rigvedic period. Then Kuru is not directly mentioned, but indicated in the late Rigvedic period. Similarly, Shantanu is mentioned in the late Rigvedic period. And after that, this Dhritarashtra, Pandu, everybody are post in the post Rigvedic is the right word. They are mentioned, and in the Itihasic period, your Pandavas are there. And by Ashwamedha, the Itihasic period ends. Now, and this is again what happened after the Parikshit's subsequent generation, even after Ashwamedha, they are mentioned in the Puranas. Now you look at this slide. So whatever is implied in the previous slide is directly put in this slide. So you have different kings in the Kuru lineage, and the last king mentioned. Now you can look at, like in the Rig Veda, you can see Shantanu as the last king in the Kuru lineage mentioned, and Rig Veda is ending around 1900 BC. And after the Shantanu, you have Vijitra Virya as his Shantanu's son, and Vijitra Virya is mentioned in Yajurveda. And Vijitra Virya's two sons, Dhritarashtra and Pandu. After Dhritarashtra is mentioned in Yajurveda. So Yajurveda ended slightly after around 100 years after the Rig Veda. We are not saying the beginning period. Beginning period we don't know, but the ending period we can clearly know. The beginning period of Rig Veda is not clear from this particular analysis, but the ending period of each Veda is very clear. So Rig Veda ended with the Shantanu, the lifetime of Shantanu in 1900 BC. Yajurveda ended with Vijitra Virya and Dhritarashtra in around 1800 BC. And Samaveda is a very small Veda, which is completely a copy of Rig Veda. So there is nothing like specific in that. Even Yajurveda is a 80 to 90% copy of Rig Veda, but with some ritualistic verses added in that. And Atharvaveda is slightly independent, but even then it contains 10 to 20% of Rigvedic verses, etc. So in that Atharvaveda, you see the Parikshit coming in. So see, after the Dhritarashtra and Pandu's son Pandavas, Abhimanyu, Parikshit. Parikshit is mentioned as the last Kuru king in Atharvaveda. And if you look at in the Mahabharata, see, we have after Parikshit Janmeja, then Shatanega, Ashwamedha, and he is mentioned as the last king in Mahabharata. And in the Puranas, you have this descendancy, like I just mentioned. All these people are there, all these people, and then from Ashwamedha onwards, 25th descent, Kshayaga is mentioned is the last king, Kuru king in Puranas. But Purana continuously edited so that you can get the mention of Nandas, subsequent Mauryas, Sungas, and Guptas. So all the kings, Gupta kings, most of them are mentioned in the Puranas. So this is how the different ancient texts are chronologically evolving. This is the continuity of that same image. You can see Atharvaveda again. I mentioned here the Atharvaveda contains Parikshit, and Mahabharata contains Ashwamedha. And the Puranas I have separated as three different categories: Vishnu Purana, Vayu Purana, Matsya Purana. They are very ancient Puranas. They contain Kshayaga, Nanda, Maurya, Sunga, Gupta, all this. But there are certain Puranas which are edited up to 12th and 15th century. There's Padma Purana and Skanda Purana. They have temples built in Varanasi and other places in 12th and 15th century. All these things are mentioned in these Puranas. Even Srikalhasti and other temples built in the 12th, 15th century are mentioned in this Padma Purana and Skanda Purana. And there is one Purana called Bhavishya Purana, which is edited up to 1900 CE. That is just 120 years ago. It is edited up to 120 years ago because it mentioned the Islamic rule, British rule. Even Queen Victoria, who died in 1901. So Queen Victoria also find a mention in the Bhavishya Purana. So that is how the Puranas got edited. Now here I will move fast because maybe I'll wind up by 12 o'clock. So this is a little data intensive slide. So I don't expect, I don't plan to totally describe it, but in a nutshell, this is like a chronological positioning of the Rig Veda. Because many people consider Rig Veda is very ancient. So they don't know like when Rig Veda started, because they don't know that so many people in our this Aila dynasty are mentioned as ancient than Rig Veda. So Rig Veda has a chronological positioning. So for example, up to Bharata, this I have mentioned, there's Daksha, Aditi, Vivasvat, Yama, Martanda, all, and you can see the Rigvedic the reference number. That is second mandala, 27 Sukta, first Rig. So all the reference number is provided. They are mentioned as ancient people. So the Daksha, Aditi, Vivasvat, they're ancient than Rig Veda. So there is these people, Manu, Ila, Pururivas, Urvashi also mentioned as an ancient figure. And Urvashi is the mother of Ayus, and Ayus son Navasha, Yayadi, Puru, Anu. Then all these 5 tribes, Puru, Anu, Drihyu, Druvasa, Yadu, some very ancient Agastya and Vasishtha and Atri and Bhrigu, Angiras, all people are ancient than Rig Veda. Certain kings in Ikshvaku dynasty like Yuvanashva and Mandada are mentioned very ancient. Ancient then, so they are pre-Rig Vedic. And Bharata is also pre-Rig Vedic. And immediately after that, Bharata's son Sukotra onwards, then the Rig Veda, early Rig Vedic period. These are the early Rig Vedic 6th mandala, Sukotra, Ajamila, and Samvarana also mentioned in the early Rigvedic. I mean, this is 3rd and 7th mandala. These are all early Rigvedic period. And some Anava kings like Chayamana, Abhyavartin, Kavasa are also mentioned in 6th and 3rd, 7th mandala, early Rigvedic period. And then the green color kings are all Ikshvaku kings. You can see Sagara. Sagara is indirectly indicated, but Amshuman indicated through Amshumati river name. He has changed the name of the river Yamuna to Amshumati, that is there. Then Bhagiratha is mentioned as Bhagiratha, and then Rama is directly mentioned in the 10th mandala, 93 Sukta, 14th Rik. And Rama Jamadagnya, that is Parashurama, also mentioned in the 10th mandala. Shandanu is mentioned in the 10th mandala. Devapi is, Sandanu's brother Devapi is mentioned in 10th mandala. There are late Rigvedic. Then Kuru is indirectly mentioned as Purushravana, and all these things. Then there is a Panchala lineage, Divodasa, Pratardhana, Sudas, Sahadeva, Somaga, from their descendants of Panchalas. And even the Magadha king Brihadrada is mentioned in the late Rigvedic period, 10th mandala, 49 Sukta, 6th Rik. And Brihadrada, the descendant Jarasandha, typically there is a grandson of Brihadrada, is mentioned in Kurukshetra war. I mean, in the Mahabharata. Of course, he died before Kurukshetra, Bhima killed him. And then after Shantanu, Vichitravirya, Dhritarashtra, then Kauravas and Pandavas, no, Pandu and Pandavas, all this later to 10th mandala of the Rigveda in the Itihasic period. So this is how the Rigveda, you have so many personalities in the lineage of Pandavas, the ancestors of Pandavas, earlier than Rigveda, pre-Rigvedic period. And some of the ancestors are in early Rigvedic period, some of them in middle Rigvedic, and Shantanu and others are in late Rigvedic period. In 10th mandala, Rama and Shantanu are contemporaries. Rama, Shantanu, Parashurama, then Devapi, then Brihadrada, the founder of Magadha dynasty, all of these people contemporary to 10th mandala. And let me see what is. Yeah, I have 6 more minutes. I will conclude. So now this is again another slide which is very data intensive, which references to various kings important to Itihasas found in Rigveda. So you can see Rama and Shantanu, Devapi, Brihadrada, then some contemporary rishis of Ramayana, Raindramayana, Chavana, everybody is in the 10th mandala period. There is a Vishwamitra and Vasishta in the 10th mandala, which is different from the Vishwamitra and Vasishta, who were the advisor to Sutas in the early Rigvedic period, who some of this Vasishta were witness to the Dasharajana battle. They were all in the early Rigvedic period, but their namesakes, probably the descendants or some other rishi using the name Vishwamitra or directly descendant of Vishwamitra of the early Rigvedic period, they were composers in the 10th mandala period. So we have the historicity for Ramayana. So because all the rishis mentioned in the Ramayana, like Vishwamitra, Vasishta, Agastya, then all these people were actually living with Rama in the 10th mandala period. That is very clear. And of course, another consequence of which other people don't really recognize is that even Shantanu is contemporary to Rama in the 10th mandala. But automatically, both are truth, that the Rigveda give you the evidence for the Vishwamitra and Vasishta as contemporary to Rama in the 10th mandala of the Rigveda. And the same Rigveda gives you, also tells you that Shantanu also contemporary to Rama, that you have to accept, because both are coming from Rigveda. And even Brihadrada was a contemporary, typically maybe an early contemporary, but of the Rama in the 10th mandala. Chavana and other, Bharadwaja, Gautama, all the rishis Rama interacted with are there in the 10th mandala. And in the 8th mandala, the Amshumati river is mentioned, which the Rama's ancestor Amshuman renamed Yamuna as Amshumati when he started ruling from Yamuna river. All these things are very clear. And here actually I have corroborated the archaeological ages with the lineage of Ikshvakus as well as the Kuru lineage. So Chandravamsha and Suryavamsha corroborated with the archaeological ages. So late Rigvedic period, you can see it is the 1900 BC to 2300 BC period, the late Rigvedic period. And in that period, you have the Aja, Dasharatha, and Rama living, and starting from the Dasharatha onwards, you have the Aitihasic period and also the Iron Age. So Rama and Dasharatha, Rama, all these people, Aja, all these people lived in the Iron Age. whereas Reku, Kakusta, and Aptus, there's a Sagara, all of these living in the Bronze Age. And they were in the mature Harappan period. And then the late Harappan, 900 to 1400 BC, that is the period of the earliest part of the late Harappan is where the Itihasic period. That is a transition between the late Rigvedic period to, transition between the mature Harappan to late Harappan period. That time, the Itihasic period, Rama and Pandavas, all these people lived in with a gap of 100 years. So 1950 to 1850 BC is the Rama era, where Rama and related relatives lived. And in the 1850 to 1750 BC, Pandavas lived. And that is why so many people who are in the life of Rama, like Parashurama, become the teacher, the preceptor of Drona and Bhishma. That is because there is only a small gap between Rama and Pandavas. Parashurama also met Drona, Bhishma. They taught him. They taught Karna. They met Yudhishthira. These are all possible because they are Rama and Yudhishthira. They are not very chronologically very not distant. So something like between birth of Rama and Pandavas, there is only 105 years. There is only around 100 years. So that is why Parashurama, because he lived a long period of time, because of which he also got a tag of Chiranjeevi. But basically because he lived more than 100 years, like around 120 years, he lived. Similarly, Hanuman also lived more than 100 years. So he was, after interacting with Sri Rama, he was also interacting with the Bhima. There are many, one Rishi named Markandeya who actually saw Rama in the Vanavasa in Rishyamukha, and also met Yudhishthira in Kaumega and Dvaitavana. And he also described about Rama's life to Yudhishthira. This is all because they were all Rama and Yudhishthira, they are all not very chronologically very far away. They are all both in the this Iron Age period, separated by just 1 century. Their birth is separated by one century, but between death of Rama and birth of Yudhishthira, there is only few decades. So that is why Parashurama, Hanuman, all these people interacted with, and even Markandeya both interacted with both Pandavas and Rama. And similarly, there is a mention about Sahadeva communicating to Vibhishana in Lanka. Now, only this is because Vibhishana, that is because they that chronological distance is not very far away. And there are so many other people like Mainda and Vivida, two generals of Sugriva. They fought with Balarama, and Balarama killed them. And then Krishna's one of the wife of Krishna is Jambavati, who is mentioned as a daughter or a descendant of Jambavat. So all these things indicate Rama and Pandavas were very close by, chronologically very close. And here actually you can see, again another slide for what happened after the Kurukshetra war. Like you have the Brihadrada dynasty, then there is a king called Sambhava mentioned, then the Jarasandha is killed by Bhima, then Jarasanda's son Sahadeva ruled Magadha. And after that, Sahadeva's son Somadi, and there are similarly 19 generations. And then you have Ribunjaya. He was killed by his minister Puniga, and Puniga's son is Pradyodha. So they started the Pradyodha dynasty. And after Pradyodha, similarly, similar thing happened. So you can see Vasavadatta marrying Udayana here. So this is the lineage of Kurus. So Abhimanyu's, there is Pradeba Shantanu Vijitra Virya and Pandu, Arjuna, Abhimanyu. Then 22nd generation Shadaniga, Udayana. Udayana married Vasavadatta of Pradyodha, daughter of Pradyodha. So they are connected. And you have the here you have the Haryanga dynasty, where the Ajatasattu, Bimbisara, Ajatasattu, all these people are there. And you can see Shemaga here, the descendant of Shatanika and Udayana. And during this period, Mahavira also contemporary to Shatanika and Udayana. This is Vardhamana Mahavira here. So those things all happened in this period. And you can see the Pradyodha, how he is connected with the different dynasties. All these things you can see here. This is Pradyodha, Mahavira, Shatanika, Bimbisara, Prasenajit of Kosala lineage, Siddhartha Gautama, all these people were contemporaries, you can see here. And Vasavadatta marrying Udayana, all these things you can see. And there is a Jain like leader called Chetaka, who almost married all his daughters to various dynasties. That you can see here. The Mahavira was his sister's son, actually. That is also, and you can see wife of Bimbisara, Prasenajit, all these people. And you can see the Jain and Buddhist contemporaries in this particular slide, how the Mahavira and Buddha are connected and contemporary. That you can see, and various lineages from Hastinapura and Kothala and Magadha interacting each other. And between Haryanga dynasty and Shushanaga dynasty, there are two versions of how the power transition happened. So one is this one, and another is this one. And then as a time passed from Shishunaga to we have Nanda dynasty, and finally the Maurya dynasty also coming into picture, like with Chandragupta Maurya defeating the Thanananda, the Chandragupta Maurya also coming. And here you can see now the 3-4 dynasties like Maurya dynasty transition to Sunga dynasty transition to Kanwa dynasty, and then Shatavahana dynasty. All these are mentioned in the Puranas. See a little more details about Maurya dynasty and Chandragupta, various aspects of Bindusara, Ashoka, then Dasharatha, up to Brihadrata. These are like descendants of the Chandragupta Maurya. And how the Sunga dynasty is contemporary to another very less known dynasty of Mitras. All these things are described, detail. And so much of details about the Shatavahana dynasty you can see here. The most important kings of Shatavahanas, Gautamiputra, Vasishtiputra, etc. And there is a Kalinga dynasty which was contemporary to these Sungas. And then the Indo-Greeks, which we call in Yavana in the Mahabharata and Ramayana, how they interacted with our Bharatiya, some of them even taking Hindu Sanskrit names. All these things are discussed here. And Shakas, similarly, after Yavanas, the Shakas came. And then Pahlavas, that is an Iranian dynasty of Pahlavas and Paradas. And then Kushanas, which in the Mahabharata, they are mentioned as Tusharas or Tukharas, which are like the snowfall in Himalayan, trans-Himalayan region. And you have the again another two types of Shakas, the Indus, and then Alexander's invasion, and how the different kingdoms emerged, like in the Shatavahana, Kushana, and Gupta. And finally, we are into the Gupta period. And okay, of course, so the Western Satrapas also is there. And certain important inscriptions like Aihole inscriptions, Janamejaya, Dana Shasana Patram, which will help us to look at the chronology, etc. So overall, what we will be able to tell you is that more or less the chronology of the Veda-Itihasa-Puranas, we have to go with the middle chronology, which is more realistic and closer to the data. And when you see other kind of chronologies where you put Mahabharata in 5561 BC, Ramayana in 1209 BC, or Sri Rama in 5114 BC, etc. These are all very exaggerated and not considering the limited number of lineages between the different personalities like Manu, Parikshit. Even if you take Rama's lineage also, it's very limited. So there are it's like no kind of gaps with a large number of kings between Rama's descendants, Brihatbala and Pandavas. These are all later additions, because you see the Puranas are edited in a much later period up to the Sunga period. So we have to be very careful while mixing data. The ancient data and new data you should not mix together. If you mix together, then you get a lot of confusing and very exaggerated chronologies. With that, I conclude my discussion.